Sand whips across the Egyptian delta as a humiliated king gives the final order. He stands in a palace stripped of its wealth. It is the number of overwhelming, structural, suffocating power. The kind of power that does not just want to defeat you in a fair fight. And 5 smooth stones from the brook. The giant falls. The heavy iron spearhead hits the dirt. The 600 is dismantled by the smallest, most insignificant weapon on the battlefield. God breaks the structure of human intimidation once again, but you have to stop and ask what the text is actually diagnosing here. Because the 600 is doing something very specific to the human mind before the battle even begins. A truly terrifying enemy does not actually want to swing a sword. They want to bypass the physical confrontation entirely and wage a war of quiet calculation inside your own head. This is the psychological genius behind the pattern of the 600 in the biblical text, and it is a tactic that transcends the ancient world. Whether it is a wall of spinning chariot wheels churning up the desert floor, or a 15-pound block of forged iron catching the sunlight in a dry ravine, the goal of the 600 is always mathematically identical. It wants you to count the cost and realize you cannot pay it. When you are faced with a structural, overwhelming force in your own life, your brain instinctively acts like the Israelite infantry standing paralyzed on that ridge. You survey the uneven terrain. You weigh the heavy medical file sitting on the cold stainless steel examination table. You trace your fingers over the black, typed letters on the foreclosure notice, but wants to make you forget you ever had a chance. It is the number of the unbeatable system, the unbreakable weapon. You measure the massive, undeniable reality of the obstacle against the fragile. Inadequate tools you hold in your bare hands, and your mind simply shuts down the possibility of rescue. The 600 is not a measure of the enemy's strength. It is a paralysis of your own imagination. It forces you into a closed intellectual system where only the heaviest, sharpest, most elite forces get to dictate the future. The enemy does not even have to throw the spear or fire the arrow, because your own internal logic has already surrendered the battlefield. This is exactly why the biblical authors are so obsessed with recording this specific number. They are diagnosing a spiritual disease. The text is exposing a profound vulnerability in the human condition, showing us that humanity is constantly tempted to look at the heavy, visible, metallic structures of power and assume that God is somehow outmatched by human engineering. When the Israelites freeze in the valley of Elah, their theology has not suddenly evaporated. They still believe in Yahweh. They just believe that Yahweh is fundamentally incompatible with the cold, hard mathematics of 15 pounds of solid Philistine iron. We are a species addicted to counting chariots. You do not stop believing in God when the crisis hits. You just assume that the divine breath does not operate in the currency of hospital waiting rooms. The force that makes you look at your own 2 hands and realize you have absolutely nothing to fight back with. You have probably felt this. Corporate restructuring, or deep generational trauma. You feel the crushing weight of the anxiety tightening in your chest. Your brain runs the numbers, and the numbers always mathematically guarantee your defeat. But the biblical authors know how seductive this kind of power is. They know that when you are oppressed by the 600 for long enough, a terrifying psychological shift occurs. You eventually stop wanting to defeat the overwhelming power of the empire. You start wanting to own it. The pattern does not stop in the water, and it does not stop in the valley. The disease of intimidation eventually infects the very people who were delivered from it. Because the next time this exact number surfaces in the narrative, the men carrying the weapons are not foreigners. The hill country of Ephraim is quiet. A militia moves north through the dry brush, their leather sandals kicking up dust, their belts heavy with iron and bronze. The book of Judges, chapter 18, records the terrifying detail of their march. 600 men of the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war. They are tired of waiting for their inheritance. They are frustrated by the slow, difficult work of trusting Yahweh. They look at the nations around them. They look at their own empty hands. And they decide to take what they want by force. You have probably stood at the edge of your own impossible sea, feeling the ground shake, Hearing the sound of something massive and unyielding bearing down on you, they stop at a house in the mountains. They take a silver idol. They take a carved image. They take a rogue priest. And then they march toward a town called Laish. The text goes out of its way to tell us that the people of Laish are a quiet, unsuspecting community. They are living in deep peace, far from any allies, surrounded only by green valleys and silence. They have no walls. They have no standing army. They are entirely vulnerable. And the 600 men burn it to the ground. They slaughter the innocent. They build their own city over the warm ashes. They install their stolen silver idol and call it a victory. The 600 has mutated. It is no longer an Egyptian chariot forcing them into the sea. It is no longer a Philistine giant mocking them in the valley. The number has infected the people of God. This is the darkest turn in the biblical pattern. The 600 men of Dan are not a holy army claiming a divine promise. They are a rogue syndicate wielding human terror. They survived the chariots in the water, only to become the crushing wheel. They watched the massive iron spearhead fall into the dirt of the Elah Valley, only to pick the iron up and point it at someone weaker. They have adopted the exact metric of intimidation that once enslaved their ancestors in Egypt. Maybe it is a financial collapse. Maybe it is a medical diagnosis that leaves you breathless. This is what happens when a people stop trusting the invisible breath of God. You start counting swords. You start weighing iron. You start relying on the cold, suffocating mathematics of force. The oppressed do not just defeat the empire. They absorb it. They become the flood. They become the overwhelming wave that sweeps away the vulnerable, entirely forgetting that they only exist because a God of mercy once held the water back for them. But this rogue militia is only a symptom of a much deeper spiritual rot, because the infection does not stop with a single wandering tribe in the chaotic era of the judges. The pattern is climbing. It is moving from the fringes of the wilderness, right into the center of Jerusalem. Because the most tragic evolution of the 600 does not happen in the shadows. It happens in a palace. Jerusalem is drowning in wealth. 1 Kings chapter 10 records an ancient capital at its absolute economic and geopolitical peak. The scent of imported sandalwood and frankincense hangs in the heavy palace air. Silver is treated like common stones in the street. Cedar beams are as plentiful as sycamore fig trees. And sitting in the center of this sprawling architectural masterpiece is King Solomon, a man who was given unprecedented divine wisdom, but who is slowly discovering that quiet trust in the divine is incredibly difficult. Maybe it is a generational cycle of failure that seems too entrenched, too well-armed, too elite to ever be broken. When you are surrounded by hostile, heavily armed empires. So Solomon begins to build a visible deterrent. He commissions his craftsmen to forge 200 massive, ceremonial shields to line the walls of his palace. But the biblical author does not just tell us that they were made of metal. He gives us the exact mathematical weight of the investment in verse 16. 600 shekels of hammered gold went into each shield. There is the number again. Only this time, it is not the spinning wooden wheel of an Egyptian chariot. It is not the massive iron spearhead of a Philistine giant. It is solid, gleaming gold, hanging in the halls of the people of God. Look closely at the mathematics of this moment. The weight of the gold is identical to the weight of the iron on Goliath's spear. The Israelite king has taken the exact measurement of the Philistine giant's intimidation and repurposed it as his own defense mechanism. He has internalized the terror of the valley and decided that the only way to feel secure is to wield that same crushing weight himself. The 600 shekels of gold are not a tactical military defense. They are a spiritual surrender. The biblical authors know exactly what that terror feels like, and they use this number to track it. To find the answer, you have to trace the pattern. Gold is a fundamentally soft metal, heavy and malleable, entirely useless for deflecting an actual iron broadsword in the heat of combat. These shields are not meant to protect soldiers on a bleeding battlefield. They are meant to hang in the house of the forest of Lebanon, catching and reflecting the flickering torchlight, projecting an aura of untouchable terrifying wealth to visiting dignitaries. Solomon has completely adopted the logic of Pharaoh. He is using the visual weight of the 600 to ensure that anyone who walks into his throne room feels entirely small, entirely helpless, and mathematically defeated before a single word is spoken. The king who wrote Proverbs about trusting Yahweh is now buying his peace of mind by hoarding the ancient metric of structural intimidation. Humanity always prefers a visible fortress over an invisible provider. We crave the 600 because it can be counted, wide, and displayed on a wall. It is the universal human temptation to secure our own future by adopting the weapons of the culture that once oppressed us. You cannot defeat the empire by dressing up in its armor. Solomon builds the ultimate monument to human intimidation, believing that the sheer weight of his golden 600 will keep his kingdom. You will find this number in the massive iron spearhead of a Philistine giant who mocks the armies of God. Safe forever. But the problem with building a psychological fortress out of soft metal is that eventually, someone with actual iron comes to take it. The Golden Age fractures. Solomon dies. A nation splits in half. Just 5 years later, the dust rises on the southern horizon. A massive army marches up the limestone mountain toward Jerusalem. It is Shishak, the king of Egypt. The wheel comes completely full circle. The Egyptian soldiers breach the city walls. They do not just empty the royal treasury. They do not just take the silver. They march straight into the house of the forest of Lebanon. They reach up to the cedar beams. They pull down the heavy metal. Every single ceremonial shield containing 600 shekels of gold is carried out the door. They load the gold onto wooden carts. They drag it all the way back to the Nile. The irony is devastating. Israel left Egypt to escape the 600. Centuries later, an Israelite king built his own 600. And now, Egypt simply walks in and takes it back. The empire reclaims its number. The crushing weight of human intimidation returns to the oppressor. But watch what Solomon's son does next. Rehoboam watches the gold leave. He does not repent. He does not fall on his face in the dust of the temple courtyard. You will find it in a rogue militia of armed men wandering the hill country, looking for a quiet, unsuspecting town to burn. He does not recognize the theological collapse of his father's strategy. He calls the blacksmiths. He orders replacements. But the treasury is empty. The gold is gone. So he orders the craftsmen to forge shields of bronze. He hangs the cheaper metal in the exact same spot. He orders his palace guards to carry them when he walks through the city. He polishes the bronze so it gleams like gold in the flickering torchlight. The bronze is not a defense. It is a delusion. Rehoboam is play-acting the power of the empire. He is faking the weight of the 600. He wants the people to feel the same intimidation, even though the actual substance is completely hollow. This is the ultimate end of relying on human force. It always degrades. Gold turns to bronze. Power turns to pageantry. The biblical pattern is screaming a warning across the centuries. The 600 always collapses. Every single time. The violent floodwaters recede into the earth. The elite chariots sink into the cold salt and mud. The 15-pound iron spearhead hits the dirt of the valley. The golden shields are carried away as foreign plunder. The math of the empire always fails. The overwhelming, suffocating force that makes you feel mathematically defeated always has an expiration date. The authors track this number so you can see it fall. They want you to watch the heavy metal fail. But they also want you to know you will find it in the heavy golden shields of an Israelite king who traded his divine wisdom for imperial wealth. Exactly what to do when the dust finally settles. Because when the 600 is stripped away, something else is left standing. Noah reached 600 years of age, and a world of violence was washed away. Pharaoh launched 600 elite chariots into the desert, and they rusted at the bottom of the sea. A giant carried 600 shekels of iron into a valley, and a shepherd boy dropped him in the dirt. 600 rogue men of Dan burned a peaceful city, and their stolen legacy eventually collapsed into ash. A king forged 600 shekels of gold into ceremonial shields, and a foreign army carried them away in the dark. A sun-polished cheap bronze to fake that same weight and expose the hollow delusion of human power. The empire builds the exact same intimidating math, generation after generation, and the breath of God dismantles it every single time. Same number, same delusion. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the bronze shields. The tragic image of a king hanging cheaper metal in the exact same spot on the palace wall. His nation devastated by 10 plagues. His firstborn son dead. Watching a slave class walk free into the wilderness. He does not just want them back. Same number. Same suffocating weight. Same crushing intimidation. But the place to start is not actually with Pharaoh's chariots. To understand what the 600, ordering his guards to carry them, polishing the bronze so it gleams in the flickering torchlight, desperate to fake the weight of the 600, because it is so terribly easy to do the exact same thing. We look at the terrifying power of the culture around us. We feel entirely vulnerable, and we try to manufacture the armor of the empire just to feel safe. If you are in a season where the math is entirely against you, if you are standing on a beach hearing the deafening roar of spinning wooden wheels, or sitting in a cold, sterile room staring at a medical or financial reality that feels like 15 pounds of solid iron resting on your chest, you need to stop counting the chariots. The 600 is not a mathematical guarantee of your defeat. It is the final gasp of a dying system. If this opened something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels completely outmatched by the obstacle in front of them right now. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once been intimidated by the heavy metal of this world walk with you, is trying to accomplish at the edge of the Red Sea. You have to go all the way back to the book of Genesis, into your valley, and show you that empty hands are the only kind he has ever needed to split the sea. The very first time this number drops into the biblical text, it has nothing to do with an army. It has to do with water, and a man standing at the threshold of the end of the world. Open your Bible to Genesis chapter 7. We are looking for a pattern. We are looking for the very first time the Hebrew text deploys this specific number, because the law of first mention often sets the theological trajectory for everything that follows. The text drops it in verse 6. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. The number frames a catastrophe. The sky fractures. The subterranean waters burst open. The deafening roar of the deep swallows the highest peaks. The stench of mud and death covers the earth. The breathing lungs of every living creature fill with water. The world as humanity knew it is systematically unmade. And right at the center of that cosmic unmaking sits the number 600. In the ancient Near Eastern literary tradition, he wants to crush their hopes so entirely that they never look up again. So he goes to the armory. Leather reins snap in the dry air. Genealogical numbers are rarely just biological tracking. They are theological markers. They are signposts telling you how to read the moment. Noah hits 600, and the world ends. This is the genesis of the pattern. A force you cannot fight. A power you cannot reason with. A weight you cannot lift. You cannot negotiate with a flood. You cannot hold back the deep with your bare hands. You can only survive it if God himself provides a way out. The number 600 is not just a biological age. It is the timestamp of an absolute threshold. It marks the exact boundary line between a world ruled by human violence and a world washed clean. It is the mathematical edge of destruction. When you see this number in the Hebrew imagination, you are supposed to feel the water rising. You are supposed to feel the sheer, unstoppable scale of a force that sweeps everything away. The author of Genesis anchors the number 600 to a flood, and that anchor holds. It sets a precedent that the later biblical authors will pick up and use with devastating precision. They know that you, the reader, have been trained by Genesis. They know that when you hear 600, your mind should subconsciously go back to the deep, bursting open. You should anticipate a flood. You should expect an overwhelming, Suffocating force. Wood groans under the weight of bronze. Thousands of hooves stamp the desert floor into a fine. Choking powder. He summons exactly 600 chosen chariots, which is exactly why the author of Exodus uses it next. The Israelites are trapped between a body of water and an enraged empire. The ground begins to vibrate. The horizon darkens with dust. The sound of thousands of spinning wooden wheels and iron axles cuts through the desert wind. Pharaoh is not just sending soldiers. He is sending a flood. And to make sure you understand exactly what kind of threat this is, the text tells you precisely what is leading the charge. The Israelites are backed against the Red Sea. The salt wind off the water mixes with the scent of panicked livestock and exhausted bodies. They are boxed in. The mountains rise to the south. The deep water blocks the east, and the barren wilderness stretches out everywhere else. And then, the ground begins to vibrate. It starts as a faint tremor in the limestone bedrock and builds into a rhythmic, deafening roar. Dust chokes out the sun on the western horizon. Exodus 14 tells us exactly what is coming. Pharaoh takes 600 chariots. To an ancient reader, that number is breathtaking. A 19th dynasty Egyptian war chariot is not a simple wooden cart. It is a masterpiece of ancient mechanized terror. It is built from steam-bent ash and elm, bound in wet rawhide that shrinks as it dries. That is the specific detail the text preserves for us in Exodus chapter 14. Most people read that number and assume it is just a military head count, creating a suspension system capable of terrifying speed over uneven desert rock. The wheels have 6 spokes, designed to be lightweight but indestructible. The axle is positioned at the very rear of the carriage, maximizing maneuverability and preventing the platform from tipping during high-speed turns. It carries 2 men, a driver to navigate the terrain, and a warrior armed with a composite bow that can punch an arrow through bronze armor. At 100 yards, Egypt's entire geopolitical dominance was built on this vehicle. When hundreds of them charge together, the friction of the wooden hubs and the pounding of the hooves create a sonic weapon before they even reach you. The noise alone is meant to break infantry lines. Picture the vulnerability of the people standing on the beach. They are holding the hands of crying toddlers. They have unleavened bread dough wrapped in their cloaks. They have no shields, no spears, no military training. They are looking at a synchronized wall of wood and iron that has conquered nations. The deployment of the 600 is not a military pursuit. It is a psychological execution. Pharaoh is ensuring that the sheer, overwhelming scale of the force makes resistance conceptually impossible. He wants them to drop to their knees in the sand and surrender to the empire before a single arrow is fired. He is using the exact number that Noah's flood established, the number of the unstoppable. Suffocating wave, a historical ledger. A passing detail meant to tell you that Pharaoh sent a massive, terrifying force to the edge of the Red Sea. The sea blocks the exit, but the chariots block the mind. It is the ultimate expression of human intimidation. But to truly feel the weight of what the Israelites are facing in this moment, you cannot just read the English translation. You have to look at the specific Hebrew adjective the author attaches to this number. Because Pharaoh did not just pick any 600 chariots. Exodus chapter 14, verse 7. The English text typically tells us that Pharaoh took 600 chosen chariots, or elite chariots, to pursue the fleeing Israelites into the desert. But the word the author uses to describe this force is the Hebrew mivchar. It is a noun derived from the root verb bahar, which means to carefully examine, to test, and to select the finest option available. Mivchar does not just mean adequate, and it does not just mean well-trained. It describes the absolute apex of quality, the prime, the meticulously hand-picked cream of the crop. In the ancient Hebrew mindset, you use this word for the fattest calf in the herd, the most impenetrable fortress in a region, the most flawless cedar tree in the forest. Pharaoh's deployment is not a tactical decision. It is a theological statement. He is bringing the ultimate achievement of human engineering and military precision to the edge of the water. And it does carry that historical weight. But if you look closer at how the biblical authors deploy this exact number, and he is laying it down as a direct challenge to the God of the Hebrews. The psychological warfare of the Mivchar relies entirely on presenting you with an unbroken, terrifyingly perfect system of power. It demands that you look at your own unpolished, weak, empty hands and calculate that your survival is mathematically impossible. If the way these ancient words unlock the human experience is shifting how you read the text, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the original language than you knew was possible. So the 600 hand-picked chariots barrel toward the shoreline, and you know the end of the scene. The sea splits open. The former slaves walk through the terrifying walls of water on dry ground, and the Egyptian Mivchar pursues them blindly right into the basin. And then the waters collapse. The 600 engines of elite human intimidation are swallowed by the exact same mechanism that the number 600 first introduced in the days of Noah. The flood returns, not to unmake the earth, but to dismantle the pride of the empire. God uncreates the 600. He proves that the apex of human intimidation is ultimately fragile when it stands before the breath of the divine. The Egyptian elite are left rusting in the salt and the mud at the bottom of the Red Sea, at the objects it attaches to. At the men who wield it across the centuries, you start to see something with the military headcount reading completely misses. But the biblical pattern does not stop in the water, because centuries later, the exact same number emerges again, attached not to a fleet of vehicles, but to a single, devastating piece of metal. The valley of Elah bakes in the sun. Two armies stand paralyzed on opposite ridges. The dirt is dry, the wind is dead, and for 40 days, every morning and every evening, the exact same nightmare walks down into the ravine. Goliath of Gath is a walking fortress. He wears a bronze helmet. He wears scale armor weighing 5,000 shekels of bronze. He wears bronze protectors on his legs. He carries a bronze javelin slung between his shoulders. But the author of 1 Samuel does not want you staring at the bronze. He directs your eye to the very tip of the giant's weapon. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 7. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. There is the number again. The chariot count becomes a weapon's weight. The wooden wheel becomes an iron blade. The Egyptian empire becomes a Philistine champion. Same number, same suffocating intimidation. 15 pounds of solid iron. That is what 600 shekels translates to. It sounds heavy on paper, but you have to feel the physics of it. Hold a 15-pound iron dumbbell in your hand. In the Hebrew imagination, numbers are not just math. They are vocabulary. 600 is not a random tally of troops. It is the anatomy of human intimidation. Now imagine attaching that solid block of metal to the end of a wooden pole, balancing it, lifting it, and hurling it with enough velocity to punch through a human chest. No ordinary man can lift it. No ordinary shield can stop it. And that is exactly the point. The 600 shekels of iron are not a practical military necessity. They are a psychological monument. In this era of biblical history, Israel barely has iron. The Philistines hold a strict monopoly on blacksmithing. They control the forge. They control the technology. The Israelites are standing on the hillside, fighting with sharpened farming tools and aging bronze swords. So, the giant walks out, holding 15 pounds of the exact metal they do not possess. He drives the butt of the spear into the dirt. The heavy iron point glints in the midday sun. He shouts his challenge into the silent valley. The pattern holds perfectly. The 600 represents a force you cannot match. It is the towering problem that has superior resources, superior technology, and overwhelming mass. It is a visual guarantee of your own defeat. The Israelites look at the iron point. They measure their own bronze swords, and they freeze. They run. They hide in their tents. The intimidation works, until a shepherd boy walks down into the valley holding a leather sling.